Have you ever wondered, what if the two familiar terms, Jew and Israelite, aren't actually the same as we've always thought? What is really hidden behind that history? It might sound surprising, but the reality is this. Not everyone living in Israel is considered a Jew, and not every Jew can claim to be a descendant of all 12 tribes of Israel. The complex overlap in history has left countless people confused, raising a persistent question. Is Israel a nation, a people, or a sacred name, layered with multiple meanings? This is one of the most common questions that appear in the comments section, and today we're going to clarify it all. Terms like Jews, Israelites, and Israel are often used interchangeably, but each carries its own story, rooted in thousands of years of history. Understanding them correctly not only helps distinguish history and culture, but also opens a deeper insight into the Bible and the covenant God made with His people. On this journey, we'll go back in time to the patriarchs of the nation, starting with Jacob, who was later renamed Israel, and then tracing the 12 tribes that descended from him. From there, we'll follow the period of a divided land, experience the trials of exile, witness the return of the Jewish people, and finally, the re-establishment of the modern state of Israel. Before we begin this exploration, I want to express my sincere gratitude to all of you who watch, share, and support the Deep Faith Stories channel. Your support is our greatest motivation. So if you've ever wondered, who are the Israelites? Who are the Jews? And what does Israel really mean in God's plan? This video is made for you. Watch through to the end to see the full picture of how God weaves His story through names that may seem similar but serve very different purposes. Are you ready to embark on this journey? Let's begin and explore the sacred, profound, and unchanging connection between God and His people. To truly understand the origins of these identities, we need to go back to the beginning of the story, Abraham, called the father of faith. When God called Abraham to leave his homeland in Ur, He didn't just lead him to a new land. He established an everlasting covenant, promising him countless descendants and passing this promise to Isaac and then to Jacob, who would later be called Israel. To understand the term Israelite, we must start with one central figure, Jacob. He is the key link that opens the entire story. In Genesis 32, when Jacob wrestles with an angel through the night, it's not merely a physical struggle. It's a pivotal moment that changes his destiny. God gives him a new name, Israel, which means he who struggles with God. From that moment on, all of Jacob's descendants were called Israelites, and his lineage became the foundation of the Israelite nation in the Bible. Jacob's 12 sons later became the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel. Each tribe carried the legacy of its founding son, so the identity of Israelite is not only about lineage, but also about belonging to the covenant, the promise God made to their forefathers. And here's the crucial point. In this early stage of history, all of Jacob's descendants were collectively called Israelites. The term Jew did not exist at that time. It only emerged much later, and initially referred only to people from a single tribe, the tribe of Judah. A turning point in history, the division of the kingdom. After King Solomon's reign, internal conflicts and disagreements plunged the nation of Israel into a period of major division. Around 930 BCE, the kingdom split into two. The northern kingdom, retaining the name Israel, comprised 10 tribes. The southern kingdom, called Judah, included the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. The capital of the northern kingdom was Samaria, while the southern kingdom continued to center its worship and political life in Jerusalem. From the moment the two kingdoms separated, the people of the south, especially those from the tribe of Judah, became known as Judahites. It was from this group that the term Jew gradually emerged, initially referring only to the inhabitants of the Kingdom of Judah. Over time, the term Jew came to represent not just a geographic identity tied to Judah, but anyone who remained faithful in worshiping God in Jerusalem, observing the Torah, and preserving ancestral traditions. This period marks the moment when the term Jew began to carry a distinct religious dimension alongside its ethnic meaning. The fall of northern Israel and the fate of the 10 tribes. By 722 BCE, the northern kingdom of Israel was conquered by the Assyrian Empire. The 10 tribes were exiled and dispersed across the region, gradually disappearing from historical records, becoming known as the 10 Lost Tribes. Meanwhile, the southern kingdom of Judah survived for several more centuries. The Judahites continued to preserve their traditions, worship at the temple, and adhere closely to Mosaic law. From this history emerges a crucial principle that is still often misunderstood today. All Jews are Israelites, as they are descendants of Jacob. But not all Israelites are Jews, since the term Israelite includes all 12 tribes, while Jew primarily refers to the descendants of Judah and Benjamin. The Babylonian exile, the birth of a lasting Jewish identity. In 586 BCE, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon captured Judah. Jerusalem was leveled, the temple was destroyed, and most Judahites were taken to Babylon. This event fundamentally reshaped Jewish identity. Without a temple for sacrifices and without a homeland to return to, they had to find new ways to preserve their faith. During this period of exile, the synagogue emerged as a place for prayer, teaching, and community connection. Rabbis gradually became religious leaders, taking on roles previously held by the temple. Studying and observing the Torah became central to Jewish life. Unlike their ancestors, whose identity was closely tied to the Promised Land and the temple, the Jews in Babylon developed a religious and cultural identity that could be carried anywhere. They observed the Sabbath, followed dietary laws, practiced circumcision, and worshipped one God. The term Jew now encompassed not only ethnicity, but also a distinct faith and way of life, regardless of location. Return from exile, strengthening Jewish continuity. About 70 years later, history took a new turn. When the Persian Empire rose and defeated Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree of immense significance. The Jews were allowed to return to Jerusalem. Many families immediately returned to rebuild the destroyed temple. Yet, many chose to remain in their established communities, gradually forming resilient Jewish communities across the Persian Empire and the ancient world. This moment marked an important development. Jews, whether in Jerusalem or far from their ancestral land, shared the same faith, traditions, and covenant. The term Jew, Yehudi, was no longer tied solely to the land of Judah, but became a symbol of a people united by faith and a distinctive religious way of life. The experience of exile, combined with the journey of return, laid the foundation for a Jewish identity that has endured for thousands of years, a heritage still evident in Judaism today. Through every upheaval, the survival of the Jewish people stands as a living testimony to unwavering faith in God and a steadfast commitment to preserving that faith under any circumstance. Looking back to the division of the kingdom. Looking further back, after King Solomon's reign, Israel was divided around 930 BCE, creating two distinct nations with markedly different identities. The northern kingdom, Israel, consisting of 10 of the 12 tribes. The southern kingdom, Judah, consisting of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. This division laid the foundation for profound changes in how people understood the terms Israel, Judah, and eventually Jew. The northern kingdom lasted a few centuries until it was conquered by the Assyrian Empire in 722 BCE. Its inhabitants were exiled, assimilated into other nations, and gradually disappeared from the historical record. They are remembered as the 10 lost tribes, a mystery that has fascinated generations of scholars and religious thinkers. The meaning of Israel after the Assyrian conquest. After the northern kingdom vanished, the term Israel took on a broader significance, no longer referring merely to a geographic kingdom. It became a symbol of the lineage descending from Jacob, a people within God's covenant. Meanwhile, the kingdom of Judah, with Jerusalem and the temple, became the sole center of Jewish religious life. The people of Judah saw themselves as the custodians of Israel's legacy, faithful to the Mosaic law and God's promises. The disappearance of the 10 tribes also sparked questions, hopes, and countless prophecies, for their vanishing was not just a historical event, but touched deeply on themes of restoration and redemption in the Bible. Prophecies of Israel's reunification. One of the most notable prophecies comes from Ezekiel 37, which describes God uniting Israel and Judah once again into a single people under the leadership of the Messiah. This vision is not merely about geographic return. It speaks to covenantal unity, a complete restoration in which all of Israel, whether scattered or remaining in Judah, would participate. The lost tribes thus became a symbol of God's promise to fulfill his plan for all of Jacob's descendants, the 2 layers of meaning for Israel and Judah. From this point, the distinction between Israel and Judah carries 2 significant layers in Jewish and Christian thought. The present layer refers to the Jews we know today, primarily descendants of Judah and Benjamin. The future layer, a greater hope that in God's appointed time, all of Israel will be restored and unified, fulfilling the covenant completely. The Babylonian exile, reshaping Jewish identity. In 586 BCE, a tragic event occurred. The southern kingdom of Judah was conquered by Babylon. Jerusalem was destroyed, the temple, the center of God's worship, was burned, and most of the population was exiled. Unlike the 10 tribes of the north, who had vanished under Assyrian conquest, the Judahites maintained a remarkably strong religious identity. Even in a foreign land, they continued observing the law, performing worship rituals, and preserving ancestral traditions. During this period, Jewish identity was redefined around 3 key elements: the tribe of Judah, the origin of the term Jew, the lineage of King David linked to the promise of the Messiah, the covenant God had established with the people of Israel. From this point, the term Jew gradually replaced Israelite, referring to those who faithfully preserved the covenantal heritage despite exile. When the Jews returned to their homeland under Persian rule, descendants of Judah and other Israelites who joined them were collectively called Jews. This explains why, in Jewish texts and the New Testament, the term Jew appears more frequently than Israelite. When the Persian Empire rose to power, King Cyrus issued a decree allowing the Jews to return in 538 BCE. They began rebuilding the temple, ushering in the era of the Second Temple, a center of renewed religious life. This reconstruction was more than architecture. It symbolized a people committed to keeping the covenant, honoring God, and faithfully following the Mosaic law. Although the name Israel continued to hold sacred significance as a link to ancestral roots, post-exilic Jews increasingly saw themselves as heirs of the covenant given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. From then on, being a Jew was not only about descent from the tribe of Judah, but also represented a spiritual commitment to uphold the laws and holy traditions God entrusted to his people. After their return, the spiritual life of the Jewish people began to change dramatically. Rabbis emerged as key guides, focusing on the study and teaching of the Torah. From this period, Rabbinic Judaism took shape, profoundly influencing Jewish life for thousands of years to come. Studying and observing the Torah became a hallmark of belonging to God's people, transcending tribal divisions. Identity was no longer defined solely by lineage, but by faithfulness to the law and an ethical life within the covenant. In this context, the term Jew gained deeper dimensions. It encompassed religious belief, cultural values and customs, and the sacred heritage tied to the history of ancient Israel. A Jew might strictly follow Jewish law, observe the Sabbath, keep kosher, and participate in synagogue life. Yet a Jew could also embody a cultural identity. Even without strict ritual observance, they still belong to the community through ancestral lineage. Within the broader Jewish community, this heritage includes rich elements such as traditional languages like Hebrew, Yiddish, or Ladino, major holidays such as Passover and Hanukkah, customs and rituals preserved across generations. Today, when we speak of Jews, we refer to a people rooted in ancient Israel, particularly the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, who have maintained their identity across thousands of years of dispersion worldwide. Whether understood in terms of religion, culture, or lineage, Jewish identity has always been inseparable from the covenant God made with Israel, a sacred heritage preserved to this day. The modern state of Israel and new dimensions of identity. The establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 marked a new chapter in Jewish history, offering a completely new perspective on identity and homeland. After centuries of exile, persecution, and dispersion, Jews finally had a place to restore their culture, practice their religion, and strengthen their national identity. This place is Israel. With the founding of the modern state came a new concept, Israeli identity. Unlike the term Jew, which is tied to ancient history, covenant, and religious heritage, Israeli represents a modern national identity, distinct from religious or ancestral heritage. Today, this distinction is clear. An Israeli is a citizen of the modern state of Israel, regardless of religion or ethnicity. A Jew remains a people with its own historical and spiritual roots, bound by a millennia-old covenant with God, maintaining traditions despite centuries of exile. This distinction implies that all Jews worldwide can view Israel as a historical and spiritual homeland, regardless of where they live. Conversely, not all Israelis are Jews. Modern Israel is home to many ethnic and religious groups, including Arab Muslims, Christians, Druze, Bedouins, and others. This highlights the depth and complexity of identity in the modern era. Being a Jew means belonging to a covenantal people with a long history, rooted in religious values, culture, and ancestral heritage. Being an Israeli means being a citizen of a modern nation where diverse religions and ethnicities coexist, sharing the same land, but not necessarily the same beliefs or cultural practices. Thus, the creation of Israel was not only the establishment of a nation on the map, but also the emergence of a new layer of identity, where Jews and Israelis coexist with overlapping yet distinct meanings. Historical yet modern, united yet differentiated. Throughout the Bible, God repeatedly affirms His promises to Israel, promises that form the foundation of their identity as a covenant people. From Abraham being called out of his homeland to Isaac and Jacob, and onward to the 12 tribes, every step emphasizes that Israel was chosen for God's sacred purpose. The journey of Israel from God's call to Abraham to receiving the law at Mount Sinai reveals a profound relationship with God, built on faithfulness, obedience, and trust. Though the people of Israel faced countless challenges, from disobedience and conflict to exile, God's covenant remained unchanging. The prophets from Isaiah and Jeremiah to Ezekiel spoke of a future hope a day when Israel would be gathered from all corners of the earth, restored and renewed both spiritually and physically. This everlasting covenant became the foundation of Jewish identity and heritage, a reminder that God is always faithful to his people. For believers today, the presence of Israel on the world map carries profound prophetic significance. The Bible emphasizes that Israel plays a central role in God's ultimate plan of redemption, a role that will be fulfilled in the future when the Messiah comes. Prophetic books such as Zechariah 12:10 and Ezekiel 36-37 foretell a special time when the Jewish people will fully return to God, recognize the Messiah, and when Israel will be restored, not only physically but spiritually as well. In Matthew 24, Jesus himself highlights Jerusalem and Israel as key focal points of end-time events, illustrating the unique prophetic role of this nation in God's plan. These prophecies are not limited to Israel alone, but carry global significance, showing that the covenant people are a conduit of redemption and restoration for all humanity. God does not reserve blessing for one nation. Through Israel, his blessings are meant to extend to every people. As Isaiah 49:6 describes, God's servant, the Messiah, will become a light to the nations, bringing salvation to the ends of the earth. This promise was fulfilled in Jesus. Through him, the blessings of the covenant extend beyond Israel to all nations. Both Jews and Gentiles are invited into a new spiritual family united by faith. Yet Israel's unique role remains unchanged. The Apostle Paul explains in Romans 11 that God has not abandoned his promises to Israel. Their restoration is part of a larger plan to draw all humanity closer to him. The image of Gentile branches grafted onto Israel's olive tree illustrates the profound connection between Israel and all nations within God's redemptive purpose. From the beginning, Israel was not only chosen as a special people, but also became a bridge through which God's blessings would flow to the world. The promise to Abraham in Genesis 12:3, "All peoples on earth will be blessed through you," shows that God intended to make Israel central to the story of redemption, a place where the law, the prophets, and ultimately the Messiah would be revealed. Through Israel, God shaped the course of history, influencing civilizations and bringing hope to countless generations. The legacy of Israel stands as a living testament to God's faithfulness, his eternal promises, and his intention to bless all humanity through his chosen people. For believers today, understanding Israel's role in God's plan is both humbling and inspiring, reminding each of us of our place in a story that spans generations. The people of Israel are a symbol of faith, perseverance, and everlasting promise. In them, we see a story that transcends borders, languages, and time, a tapestry woven with divine purpose, drawing us closer to the heart of God's plan. Every believer is reminded that Israel remains proof of God's faithfulness and steadfast love toward all nations. By examining the connections and distinctions between Israelites and Jews, we are invited to see the broader picture of God's work in the world, a story in which every person has a part, united in faith and hope, beginning with the promise to Abraham. If this video helps you better understand the origins and identity of Israel, please like, share, and subscribe to Deep Faith Stories. Leave a comment if you'd like us to explore more about ancient nations or prophecies related to Israel. Thank you for joining us, and may we all be inspired to walk faithfully in God's eternal story.